Hey guys, it's Riggs. I can't figure out my lighting, but let's look at some games. So, I'm going to get right into it. Normally I do a top 10 just writing it out, but I decided to do a video this year. I wanted to do something that was a little bit more personable and might be fun to watch. I don't know, but I have friends that do these and they always seem like a good time for me. So, hey, let's see what happens. My first game of the year will actually be my number 10 game of the year. I'm doing a top 10. Is a game that I hadn't really heard of that I picked up randomly on Amazon one day because it looked kind of cool, and that is The Last Faith. Now, this is a Metroidvania, of course, because I love those games. Definitely leans more on the side of the Castlevania than the Metroid side. Now, this game plays a lot like Blasphemous and Blasphemous 2 by Game Kitchen. Like I said, this is a Kumi Souls game. It's really, really fun. It plays kind of like Bloodborne as well. It's just funny because people call this a Blasphemous-like when Blasphemous itself was called a Souls-like. I don't know. Full circle, I guess. Anyway, great game. Check it out. I haven't spent as much time with it as I'd like to, but everything that I've played has been fucking awesome. Okay, on to our next game. This is another game I played originally on PS4, the first game, I should say. I'm looking at Outcast's A New Beginning. Now, this is a sequel to Outcast Second Son, I believe it was called. I don't remember what the full title was, but it was Outcast. This was actually made by, let me see here, Appeal Studios, and published by THQ Nordic. You know, they've been buying up a lot of older properties. They recently, well, not recently, within the last 5 or so years, released the Kingdoms of Amalur Re-Reckoning. They've been just killing it with reviving old games. Anyway, Outcasts, A New Beginning, is pretty cool. You end up shipwrecked on the planet Adelpha. You have to help the local tribe of the Talons overcome some of their turmoils and tribulations. It's a really cool game, though. You fly around on a jetpack. It actually reminds me of, what was that game? Star Ocean, that came out a few years ago. I think it was 2 years ago now. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But you fly around in a jetpack. The flying mechanics are super fun. Shoot things. It's fully open world. You can explore wherever you want to go. You will get killed a lot early on, but the game really opens up as you acquire skills. You get the jetpack pretty early on. It's a super fun game. It's a pew pew. And like I said, you get to fly around in a jetpack. I love flying in games. I feel that's been done really well. Star Ocean did okay. This game does great. Hogwarts Legacy did fantastic on flying. I loved that. I would just go into that game and fly around sometimes. But anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get on to the next game. Let's see here. Coming in at number 7, I guess it would be. No, 8, I guess it would be. Math isn't my strong suit. Is a game that I expected to be a lot higher on the list, but it was a pretty good game. It ended up being on there, but not as high as I thought it would be, and that's The Last Ronin. Now, this was made by Team Ninja, and we know that Team Ninja is great at these kind of games. It is considered loosely a Souls-like, but I think it has a little bit more to do, or a little bit more like Assassin's Creed, I guess. Regardless, The Last Ronin was done by Team Ninja, who have done the Neo games. They did the excellent Wo Long last year, Fallen Dynasty. And this continues that trend of just really good fighting games. It's a open world, well, semi-open world, action-adventure, ARPG, what have you. Really fun. It's pretty direct what they're calling it. This is, I think, trying to cash in on the Ghost of Tsushima craze, you know. Those games are fantastic. But this game is really good, too. I spent, I'd say, about 45 hours playing this, and I had a blast the entire time. Now, there's a ton I didn't do, but I had a good time with this. I kind of rushed through it toward the end there to get some other games in for the year. Moving on. Now, if my memory serves me correct and my math is good, 10, 9, 8. This is the number 7 game. I don't know why I didn't write down some kind of list. But this game really surprised me, and it's because I hadn't heard of it. Another one I actually bought at the same time as The Last Faith, and that is Banishers, Ghosts of New Eden. This game is something else. It's actually made by Don't Nod. Now, Don't Nod have done another big game that was a lot better than it had any right to be, and that was Vampire, however you want to pronounce that. I'm not really sure. Vampyr. Regardless, this takes place in 1695. In a town called New Eden. You play as 2 banishers. You play Antia, who is the woman, and Red, the man here. Now, they are a couple. They're a married couple that happen to be what we call banishers. Banishers are, think, like old school Ghostbusters, essentially. They will go, and what they will do is exorcise demons, help spirits cross over. Either they ascend or they can banish them. So essentially a heaven or hell scenario. Now, the cool story here is Antia, who is a banisher, dies at the beginning of the game. So you have a moral dilemma throughout the game. You can choose to save and ascend these spirits that you find, or you can actually use it to say there's a crime where the woman committed a crime and killed her husband, but the husband was horribly abusive, and so you have to try to figure out, and she's being haunted by that abusive husband now. So you have to figure out whether you want to send the ghost to hell, or if you want to send her to hell for murder. I mean, there's all kinds of choices you can make, and you can make those freely throughout the game. It doesn't have to be down one path. You can go back and forth on it. But the overall goal is to decide whether at the end of the game you are going to save your wife and bring her back, because if you decide to send all these souls to hell, you can then use those souls to revive your wife, or do you stay by the code of conduct you've lived your life by and let her move on and help these other spirits ascend as well. It's very cool, almost BioWare level in the choices that you can have, and the combat is very reminiscent of something like Witcher 3. Unbelievably good game, and it came out of nowhere. It's a beautiful game. It's a little itty bit janky in some of the combat, but I'd never found it distracting enough to take me out of the game. This game is awesome. I highly recommend it. If you like action-adventure games, if you like choice narrative-driven games, like the BioWare games, you'd really enjoy this. Highly, highly, highly recommended. Now, getting into number 6. This is kind of a controversial pick as well, because it's technically not a game. Now, let me explain. This is the only physical version I have, so I'm going to show you. But Elden Ring's DLC came out this year, Shadow of the Erdtree. I know myself and a lot of other FromSoft fans were eagerly anticipating the DLC. And in true FromSoft fashion, it did not disappoint. What they released essentially with Shadow of the Erdtree was a full game. It did continue where you left off. I actually played back through a whole new save in Elden Ring to prepare for this, so I took that character over into it, and yes, you can carry on your character, but levels don't matter. You go in pretty underleveled, you got to find what they call Scuda tree fragments, you add those up, and they'll eventually boost your stats enough to play against these bosses, which is nice, because you don't go in overleveled. You don't go in and just wreck everything. You go in pretty underleveled, and until you get those fragments, most of the bosses in the world will thrash you. I spent close to 50 hours playing this, and that's why I do count it as a full game, because let's face it, that's enormous. That's more than a lot of studios put out initially, and this was a DLC. So FromSoft knocked it out of the park again. The exploration was fantastic. Probably the hardest part of the game, to be quite honest with you. The map is huge. The boss fights are memorable. I just had a great time with it. It's a continuation of an already fantastic game. Elden Ring is a game of the year on any category or any year. But this game itself, the DLC, I should say, was just another feather in the cap of FromSoft's stellar catalog. So moving on, this will be getting in the top 5 category, so it's getting exciting. Top 5, and this game is probably going to be a lot of people's number 1, but I liked it a lot, and it's Stellar Blade. The combat in this was fantastic. It's made by Shift Up Games. I think this is a Sony exclusive. I'm not 100% sure. I actually hope it's not, so more people can play it. But you play as a character named Eve. You go back to Earth, where essentially humanity's been wiped out and the world is overtaken by creatures. Now, I don't know what those are exactly. Some of them look like robots. Some of them look like beasts. They're just kind of Cronenberg monsters of everything. It's very, very cool. But this game got a lot of flack because of the over-sexualization of the characters. And while I do understand that, it was pretty ridiculous. The big boobs, big booty, not that I'm complaining, but it was very strange initially and almost stopped me from playing the game. But I did give it a chance, and what is here is a fast-paced action RPG. Very cool game, visually beautiful. Something that I definitely want to mention is the music in this game is unlike anything I've ever heard. It's unreal. It shouldn't fit into it, but it does. And it's nearly Final Fantasy levels of just like peak game music. The OST in this alone is worth checking out, even if you don't play the game. Look into the soundtrack to this game. It's It's something. Number 4 that we're getting into here, and this is going to piss some people off because a lot of people think this actually does deserve Game of the Year. And had I played it longer, possibly. But what I'm looking at right now is Game Science's Black Myth Wukong. Essentially, when I played this game, I didn't even think it was going to make a list. I hated it initially, as a matter of fact. The combat seemed very shallow, very boring, but what I didn't understand is that combat opens up via a skill tree as you play longer. So I did stick with it because friends told me this was a Rick-ass game, and they couldn't be more right. I love it. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, it's based on the Chinese mythology of Journey to the West, as a lot of people have maybe not be familiar with. It talks about Sun Wukong, who ascended to Buddhahood. And he was a monkey dude. Should have mentioned that. He ascended to Buddhahood, and he essentially led a rebellion against the gods. Now, the gods did manage to overthrow him and broke him up into essentially Horcruxes from Harry Potter. A bunch of different pieces. Since then, the monkeys of the world have united to attempt to revive him via finding these relics, and that's where the Destined One comes in. Now, Revival, I believe, is becoming Sun Wukong, but the game's awesome. It reminds me a lot of Sekiro. Not so much parrying, but rolling, dodge rolling, evading plays as much of a role in this as parrying or deflecting did in Sekiro. The comparisons are obviously there with the mythology. Some of the scenery is very similar. But yeah, this game is nuts. I'm glad I waited for the physical. I really like it. Any other year, this might have been my Game of the Year. It actually might surpass that later this year. I don't know. I haven't finished. I'm only into Chapter 3 now, but I've been playing this nonstop. I knew it deserved somewhere on this list. I put it up where I thought it was at least the least that it was going to be, and that's number 4. Could it be number 1? Could it be number 2 or 3? Possibly, but I won't know until I finish it, so I wanted to put it on the list, so I'm going to put it at number 4 for now. Moving on, I got my number 3 game of the year. This game, some people didn't like. I thought it was great. And initially, well, I'll just show it to you. I'm looking at Dragon's Dogma 2, developed and published by Capcom. This is a sequel to the much-loved Dragon's Dogma, kind of a cult classic for those that played it. I know a lot of people didn't. I think it might have came out around the same time as Skyrim. I don't know, but regardless, it was overshadowed by other games. The combat in this game is wonderful. You control yourself, and you're able to make, I don't want to say AI, but basically CPU or whatever you want to call it. I don't fucking know. Versions of other characters called pawns, and they help you. They help you in combat. They help you with buffs. You get to fully customize them, so their skills will help you in battle. It's cool because you're not just making you. You're not just playing you. You're creating a party. You're creating a build from a group, which is really, really cool. And of course, you can via online, you can use other characters' pawns, or not other characters' pawns, but other players' pawns. Those pawns can go on adventures. Yours can come back to you and bring you things from the adventures in other people's games. It's just really cool. Initially, when this came out, there was a rumor of microtransactions, and I do believe they were in the game, but I played through it without touching that. I never saw so much as a pop-up or any kind of advertising for those microtransactions. So I think you really had to dig in order to even find that. I played this, got through it in roughly, I want to say 50 hours. I spent some time on it, and I loved this game. Great combat, gorgeous looking game. Maybe a little forgettable as far as the storyline goes, but the action was fun. It was so fun and engaging. So moving on. Number 2 was this year's Game of the Year for a lot of other people, but came in number 2, and I'll tell you why here in a bit. This was Astrobot. I'm an adult man. This game was awesome. I thought, essentially, I'm like, I don't want to play some Sony tech demo. It doesn't look like anything I'd really be into. But I gave it a shot, and what I ended up finding was just a fantastic platformer. The quality here can be compared to something like Nintendo's Mario Odyssey. Let me think what else. I heard it compared to Mario Sunshine, which I didn't play. I actually did play a little bit of that, but I never really got deep into it. It was really hard for me as a kid, so I just stopped playing. But Astrobot, the music is fantastic. Graphically, it's beautiful. It really flexes what the PS5 can do, and I think that is what the general idea was, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of their console, or I should say of the console developer itself. Unbelievable game. Some of the later levels are intensely challenging, I guess is the word for it, almost to the point of being unfair. But those levels are optional to beat the game. I do want to go back and get those because I need those for the platinum. I got everything else that I needed to get in the game except for the shape levels, which are your triangle, square, X, circle. Those buttons are dedicated to 4 stages in each galaxy, and they are unbelievably difficult. I have finished the X and the triangle. I have the square and the circle to finish, and I honestly don't know if I can, but I'm going to try. This is an excellent game, a ton of fun. Everything about it brought me joy, even those hard levels, because it was so fun to play. If you haven't played Astrobot, you're on the fence, you think it looks like a kiddie game or whatever, I assure you, if you love video games, if you played video games all your life like I have, if you love the challenge of platforming games and the exploration of more modern games, looking for all these power-ups and collectibles and things like that, so many branching paths, Astrobot is incredible. I cannot push this game enough. Fantastic. But we're getting long in the tooth here, so I'm going to hurry up and move on. My number 1 game of the year, a lot of people hated it. It was incredibly divisive. I had no problem with it. Some people did. We're not going to get into that because I don't care. And that is Dragon Age: The Veilguard. This game was the first game I can remember last year thinking, I'm playing that game. The second it comes out, I'm getting that game. I have to play that game. I will preface by saying I'm not a Dragon Age fan. I've never played Origins. I did play Inquisition. I found it a little bit shitty. I guess I shouldn't say shitty, but yeah, shitty. The combat was terrible. Now, I'm a very combat-heavy guy. I like games with action-oriented combat, and that one seems shallow to me. Now, the choices that I was able to make in that were fantastic, and honestly, a lot of people think that's where this game falters. The choices that you can make in it, very safe, I would say. You're not really allowed to be a dickhead. You can disagree with people, but it all kind of comes back to the same outcome anyway. There's a lot to like about this game. The combat is unbelievably fun. Very arcadey, very hack and slashy, very over the top with particle effects and big bright lights and loud noises. The exploration is a blast in this game. The graphics are very cool. Some people said it looks like a Pixar movie, and while I do see that in some of the character models, the areas and the world that you fight in is unreal. It's almost like running through a fantasy dream. It's just... it reminds me of a modern Kingdoms of Amalur, as a matter of fact. I mentioned that game earlier from THQ Nordic. It's bright, it's vibrant, it pops, it's fantastical and over the top. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous game. It looks like something from a storybook. I just can't explain it. It's so pretty. But the characters are all great. The characters are all great. You get to play Rook, obviously. You have Neve. You have Lucanus. You have... Wow, I'm forgetting characters' names for a game that's my game of the year. No, this game is wonderful. I'm actually on my second playthrough now. I'm deciding to play and make some other choices to see how the story branches off. But my time with this game... Harding, that's the name I was trying to figure out. Harding. Harding was my favorite character. I don't know why I couldn't think of the game. Or the name, rather. Emmerich was great. Tash was great. Taash. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. Regardless, all the characters were awesome. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on this game. I really think you should try it. Everybody's calling it woke or whatever. Well, maybe they're asleep. Check it out. Awesome game. Now, normally I would say game of the year, best game I played this year. But I can't say that. This is my game of the year. I do love Dragon Age. I think it's a fantastic game. But it's not the best game I played this year. There's actually two. Two from years past that I would consider the absolute best games I played this year. One of those being, let's call this 1B. It's not quite the best, but it deserves mention. And that is Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection. This is cool. Just a cool game. I've never been one for shooters. I'm better at third person than first person, so I decided to give this a shot because I've heard a lot of people like it. I like the National Treasures movies a lot. I like the Tomb Raider games. I'd never played Uncharted, so I decided to give it a shot, and oh boy. This game is a blast. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because it's an older game. A lot of people have played it, but it's fun. It's a pretty game for the time. It's fun. It's frantic. It's adventurous. It's awesome. Uncharted, one of the absolute best games I played this year. Would have been probably the best had it not been for this. And the best game I've played this year, one of the best games I've ever played, is one that scared the crap out of me the first time I tried it, but I went back to it because hesitation is defeat. Bam! Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice. Coolest fucking game ever. I don't know how else to put this. This game was a challenge unlike anything I've ever played. I really thought that it was beyond me. I could not do it. I accepted defeat. But I decided on my bucket list last year. I said in 2024, I'm finishing Sekiro. I barely got into this the first time I played it. I may have been 3 or 4 hours into it and noped out because I was getting wrecked. My friend Dan decided to play it, and he beat it, and he loved it, and told me this feeling of euphoria that you get when you finally click with the combat, and it becomes a dance. It's a beautiful game. Beautiful game. You play as a shinobi named Wolf. Also, Sekiro is how it's translated, I guess. There's nothing I can say about this game that would do it justice. The combat's engaging to a point that you get absorbed into the game and can't think of anything else around you at the time. It is tunnel vision locked in playing this game. And the timing, the parrying, the different prosthetics you can get for your arm to use. Sekiro is a life-changing game. It's completely changed what I thought I could do in gaming. It's unreal. I'm patting myself on the back. It's a humble brag. I got through Sekiro, and I've done it again. I'm going to go for all the endings. It's an awesome game, and it's an absolute 10 out of 10. If I could give it more, I would. It's a lovely, lovely game. But I'm rambling. I wanted to go over my top games of the year. I think I did a decent job of that, stumbling through it. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed my little video here. Maybe I'll do more, maybe I won't. My follow-through has never been a strong suit for me. But yeah, I got some games to play, so talk to you guys soon. Peace.